Frank,
Good morning.
how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I just want to make sure all this high-tech equipment worked.
You look great.
Good, thank you. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Shauna, we don't really start until 9:40 if you want to come back or hang around.
Well, you don't have to entertain me. I just want to make sure we're connected.
Yes, and you look great.
All right.
Okay.
Looking forward to it.
Yep, I'll just stay on here. If you can just leave it out.
Good morning.
Hello. How we doing today?
Fantastic, never better. How about you?
Great.
Wait, where are you? Are you in Memphis?
No, I'm in Kansas City, North Carolina.
Oh, how nice. How's the weather there?
It's about 72 degrees. The sun's shining.
We got no sun here. It looks like it's about to pour.
I'm not complaining. Let me put it that way.
Right on. Right on. What you doing to keep yourself busy these days?
Well, I play a little golf, and I still do a lot of business as long as I have my computer, my telephone.
Sure. How's the golf game?
Machine to scan and copy. I can pretty much be anywhere.
Yeah. How's your golf game these days?
Along my age, it's gone real high.
You sound, my dad uses that line. Come on.
I used to be frustrated because I didn't play better. And now I'm enjoying it a lot more because I know I'm never going to get any better. So
Nice.
you just accept it and move on.
Nice.
How are you? Is school doing all right?
School's doing good. I'm teaching freshmen this semester, which is a brand new thing for me. Normally I teach upperclassmen.
I was going to say you did not do that.
No. So I invited them all to come on today. We'll see how many show up. I know I got at least one frantic email that they could not find the link. I'm like, how could you not find the link? It's posted in our course and I sent it to you and well, whatever. At least they're trying.
Well, I know y'all struggle because my son taught at University of Tennessee when he was getting in process of his PhD, and he said it's amazing the number of kids would come in, wouldn't attend class, and come in and beg for a grade at the end of the year.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know where these people come from. I didn't know you could do that.
No. What can I do to raise my grade? And
That's
all
it.
along in the freshman class, especially since we're on Zoom, I take pictures around town. By the Redbird Stadium. I took it by High Cotton. I took it by Sun Studios, and I ask them, where am I? And if you get it right and you tell me one unique fact about it, you get some bonus points. So every week I'm giving out something. So if they're engaged, they're going to get the points if they want them.
Sounds like you're teaching kindergarten.
Pretty much. Well, it is their first level class, and to go completely online and to navigate eCourseWare, it's a lot.
I couldn't do it. I don't understand it enough. I can do an email and create a file, and that's about it.
Yeah, well, it's a whole new game now.
I got on with Ms. Callahan early this morning just to make sure I could get on it.
And you did okay.
I
did. George Falls, welcome. He's not connected to audio yet.
I don't even see him. I'll go see him.
Do you see him?
Nope.
He's must have a slow internet connection there. Still, I'm gonna. He's still connecting. Can you see him yet?
No, ma'am.
Huh. There he is. Hi, George.
Yeah.
Hey, all right.
Hey, son. How are you? Gosh,
I'm good.
I didn't know what was going to happen. I just wanted to hear you.
Well, that's the way I was. I was just saying, I called Miss Callahan early this morning, about 10 minutes early before we got on, just to make sure I pushed the right buttons.
Me too. I had to have my wife help me.
Well, I can create a file, join a Zoom meeting, and send an email, and after that, computer's worthless. I can look at the daily reports.
There you go. You got to do that.
That's right. Your buddy Fred just got a diagnosis. He has extreme sleep apnea.
Yeah,
You knew if he got it, he'd have extreme, didn't you?
of course. Yeah.
But he's supposed to get a machine today or tomorrow, and he'll be all right.
Yeah.
Once he gets that machine, he's going to feel tons better. I mean, you feel like a new person once you get one of those.
Do you have it? Do you have it
Yeah.
also? I have it, and George has had trouble a couple of times in his life with his lungs, so he knows what it's like to be hard to breathe. So
No, matter of fact, I have two machines now. One,
Maybe
Kim,
you can.
Kim, I thought it was real nice that that the Wilson Foundation was giving a $5,000 grant for anyone that would talk to the students.
You like to put people on the spot, don't you?
And Frank, you promised me you were going to give me that money.
I
Yeah.
forgot that. I forgot that.
Yeah, yeah. It all goes to the students, by the way. You know, anything that Kim does goes to the student. He only does it for students.
I got that.
Yeah. And you too. So,
Tim, did you move to Jackson Hole permanently?
Well, we've been working remote since March, and I
You've been
figured.
there since March?
Well, we closed our Memphis office, and everybody was working from home. And I figured if I've got to work remote, I'd just soon work from Jackson Hole than Memphis.
I thought the kids and grandkids were doing all the work anyway.
Well, they are, but and a lot of them were out here. Yeah, it's really been nice. I mean, it's 34 degrees this morning, so
wow.
it's wonderful.
Bright and sunny. We can see that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, Kim, do you have a property out there to manage so that you have some real excuse to be in there?
Yeah, I bought an old hotel 10 years ago and tore it down, and I built some condominiums, and so we're staying there. So we've got a little complex out here, and a little compound that we had all 5 kids and their spouses and 19 grandkids out here. So
Whoa.
it's
Did you give everybody a family rate?
they got the family rate, that's for sure. Yeah, they got the family rate. There was nobody asking how they could help out.
I think with those results, you ought to be the one speaking and not me.
No,
I'm Jackson Hole.
Yeah, it's been great. Frank, are you in Destin?
No, I'm up in Cashiers, North Carolina.
Oh, nice.
We come up in June and then go back to going home a week from tomorrow.
Okay. How was Destin hit hard with the winds and water?
We had about a 2 day, day and a half of water and little wind, little water, a lot of water, but it was not, we were spared any damage, but ran all the business off, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What little we had left.
Yeah.
And our group business, which you get into, has just been decimated this year. So,
Oh man,
we're
it's
about
like
about a 50% house and group, and when you lose, $17 million worth of room business for the year, it's already on the books. Sort of hurt.
yeah.
But we're recovering nicely, and I think 21. With cancellation 60 days out, you can't depend on anything. But our bookings look extremely strong starting the first quarter. So,
Oh, good deal.
Cody was ahead of Mike Miller.
I'm very positive.
Coaching power rankings, though.
All right, we can
What
go ahead and get started. If let's go ahead and mute.
I'm going to mute everybody, and then and Cody, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Okay, welcome everyone. I want to welcome you to the Kimmons Wilson School Research Forum. This is the 5th year that we have been doing this, and what started as a way to allow hospitality and sport faculty to look for collaboration and research has expanded into bringing outside speakers to talk with our students and network with our students. So today we have another great speaker, Mr. Frank Flott, and he is given his time to chat with everyone today and answer any questions that anyone has. And Dean Pellicurthy will be the moderator for this. So at this point, I'll welcome everyone and I will turn it over to Dean Pellicurthy.
Thank you, Cody. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this session. We're really privileged to have Frank, but I also would like to acknowledge we have other board members. Mr. Kimmons Wilson Jr. is here. George Falls, he's the owner of the Paulette restaurant downtown, as you probably know, and Chuck Pinkowski, that nobody builds a hotel without consulting with Chuck. So he's got that reputation in the whole industry. So thank you for joining, and thank the students for being here. We are really privileged to have Frank speak to our class. He's done this before, but via Zoom for the first time. And I've known Frank since I took this job personally, because he was one of the people who interviewed me. And I tell you, it was probably one of the hardest ones I had. He had very poignant questions and so on. So it was a long interview. So I know how he thinks and how he works and how good he is in analyzing issues. So he'll share some of those with you today. You all read his bio. Frank doesn't like to talk about himself. He made that very clear. In case you haven't read his bio, I'll give you a very quick summary. Frank is a proud graduate of Business School. He is from the class of '63, had an extraordinary career since then. He was one of the original management. He was part of the management team that grew Holiday Inn into what it became when he became the senior vice president for international franchise sales. So they had the most rapid growth under his leadership. And then he was there for 6 years. Then he actually became the president of W.B. Johnson Company. They were the owners of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel properties, a world-class chain, as you know. They won the Malcolm Baldrige Award a couple of times. And then in 1974, he started his own company, Flott Properties, that did a whole gamut of services for property management and hotels, including development and management. He sold the company to start or to get involved with the Sandcastle Resort, which is the company that has grown into what it is today. And if you've seen the website, we sent you the link. They have 39 properties right now that they own or manage. World-class properties. The flagship one is the Hilton Sandestin property. It's a resort, and George could tell you more about, Frank could tell you more about that too. It's a 600-room property. So we live in strange times right now, especially in our industry. You probably heard this morning that the Peabody Hotel is laying off 57 people permanently. Okay, and at the same time, we also heard from the ADP company today that the hospitality industry has added about 130,000 new jobs in the private sector, which is just in August, and that is 25% of all the jobs that have been added in August in the economy. So we see, I'm hoping Frank will put some sense out of all of this. What I do just in terms of the format is I have a couple of for Frank. turn it over to a Q&A session for the students and faculty to ask questions. And in the meantime, if you would like, you could go ahead and type questions in the chat session. So, we can monitor those and come ask Frank the questions that we think are relevant to the session. Okay, please keep your mics muted unless you have a question to ask. All right, let's move on with the first question or first issue that I would like Frank to talk about. None of us, as far as I know, other than the people, of course, on the executive board, have had personal experience with Kimmons Wilson Sr. And Frank obviously has worked with him. So I was wondering if there's anything, anecdotal that you could share with us that would throw some light on how our founder thought about business or working with people. Frank, do you have any stories to share with us about Kevin Sr.? Frank, you're muted. I'm sorry. Peggy, can you unmute him? Peggy, can you help it?
Frank, at the bottom of the screen, there should be a kind of a selection that says mute with
I don't think I can.
there's something that says start video and mute. If you press that mute, it should take you off.
I'll unmute everybody.
Okay, unmute everybody. And then can you all?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. Can the rest of you mute yourself so we don't have background noise? Yeah.
I'm still here.
Okay, good. We can hear you now, Frank. I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. In answer to your question, anyone that worked with Mr. Wilson, as I called him most of the time, because in deference, because I was in awe of him.
Oh, it's muted again, Frank. There you go. Yeah.
I don't know why, I didn't touch it, but anyway, we'll move forward. I just think of two things that I really thought were ironic, especially considering today's travel. He and I were scheduled to go to Cali, Colombia, flying down there and stopping in Miami, and then into Bogota and then to Cali. Kimmons got to the airport. I lost you. Did you lose me?
No, we can hear you.
Okay. Got to the airport and he patted himself on the chest and he said, told the agent, said, I don't have my passport. He did the same thing in Miami. He did the same thing in Bogota. They let him out of this country and into that country without a passport. I don't know what the heck he told the agent, but I've never yet seen anybody that could go out of one country and another and not have a passport. I left him in Cali, but somehow he got back to the United States. He always wanted to one up somebody. And then if you did something well, he would acknowledge it. I told the Wilsons not long ago that I did a project when I built Sandestin. It was sold as a condominium hotels, which meant we blocked at that time it was 400 rooms. We blocked the whole hotel up into 100 rooms and sold a room off to individuals. So we had 400 sales at $125,000 a piece, sort of what like be a condominium hotel. Then everyone pooled the money back, pooled the rentals back in and divided up the profits. I got a call from Kimmons one day after I left Holiday, and obviously I'd been gone 10, 12 years. And I got a call from him and he said, let me understand something. He said, you're telling me that you've sold that hotel to 100 times. 400 times. And I said, yes, we did. He said, well, that's just amazing. Congratulations, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, thank you, I appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. Then he did Wilson World down in Orlando and went into a timeshare business, which sold the properties off by a week. And he sold 50 weeks out of the 52. He sold 50 shares in the project to investors who wanted to use them. And he picked up the phone and called me and he said, you sold yours 400 times He said, I sold every one of mine 50 times. So he was so very proud of himself that he'd one up me. And I said, well, I'm so glad. Congratulations. Move on. I wish you all the success in the world. But my initial days go back, I think fondly about my opportunity that I had to go to work out of the University of Memphis for Holiday Inns, because 65 years ago, I was sitting mostly where your students are, not with no idea what I would do to correct your introduction of me. I did not graduate from business school. I was a liberal arts major in history and English and had never taken a business course in my life. I walked into the door at Holiday Inn, and the assistant personnel director said, we have an opening in franchise sales and one in outdoor advertising. He said, which would you like to do? And I said, I think I'd like to apply for franchise sales. So I didn't even know what a franchise was. I said, what is it? He said, well, that's where you sell a license to build a hotel and you get involved in real estate and construction and finance, and you learn something about law and this, that, and the other. I said, that sounds of interest to me. So I was hired by Jeff Mann, who recently passed away, who was the head of the franchise sales area, and George Falls, who's on this call. That was in 1963. Holiday Inn had, the day I went to work for them, had 300 hotels, just a measure of where the system was. So it had had some success. When I left 6 years later to the day, I think they had 1,000, which meant we looked at a lot of deals. And the last 2 years I was there, I was put in charge of international sales and tried to get franchises built overseas and or out of the country. I knew so very little about it, but that was just typical of what Holiday Inns did. They would take somebody that they thought had some merit and some character or whatever, and they said, well, go do this job. And they never told you how to do it, never gave you the parameters of what's required of you. They said, we want to expand this thing, so go figure it out. And based on that sort of faith that the company had in people, people performed well. A lot was expected of them. Performance was required. Mistakes were accepted as or tolerated simply because you understood that the people were trying to do the best they could, but rewarded when they did well. And anyway, the learning process from knowing absolutely nothing about the hotel business to learning an awful lot as Kimmons, you know the story of Kimmons, going on vacation, being disappointed with travel conditions. Actually started the hotel industry as we know it today, and franchising was just a unique sort of deal. There were, of course, franchises with Coca-Cola and other, but not with hotel properties. There weren't but a few Sheratons, a few Hiltons. Howard Johnson was well represented with the restaurants, but not so in the 60s with what they call motor coaches, motor houses. And then they had the, of course, Alamo Plaza, which no one knows what it is today, but it was the only hotel, what you call chain in the country. But the country had gone under a change in the 50s after Al Gore from Tennessee, the father of Al Gore, got the interstate highway bill passed. That was really coincided with the growth of Holiday Inns because, as you know, historically in this country, people traveled wherever the stagecoach went, and then they went wherever the river went. They had riverboat towns and hotels around the river. Highways were then built to take care of the automobile. And that grew into the interstate highway system, which replaced all the highways. So it created an opportunity for the suburbs to develop, and as they did, it created lots of new opportunities for new development to put hotels around the city, instead of being in center city, they could go out to the suburbs. And we spent a great deal of time at that time as the highways were being built. I sound like I'm a fossil, and I probably am, but not for you all guys not to know that the interstate highway didn't even exist. We'd go out into properties in the countryside and say, well, the interstate's going to come through here. Where do you think the hotel ought to be located? And so we'd help and advise people on buying property and building their buildings and so forth. It was just a huge, tremendous education. And George and Jeff tutored me, gave me a great deal of insight into the hotel business. Probably the greatest thing they ever did for me, excuse me, the way I ended up in the hotel business, doing hotel deals was, and I think Chuck could probably bear this out, that if you're sitting there today in a class wondering what you ought to study, I think if you'd study anything, it ought to be the financial side of the hotel, being able to read a profit and loss statement, pick one up and see whether the hotel is being operated financially, astutely financially, be able to pick the thing apart and understand what the property is producing income, because based on that, you can either improve it or think you can improve it or try to improve it. And it may be in, like we found, and when Jeff and I got in business later on, I went with Bill Johnson in Atlanta as the eventually before. I was not a part of the Ritz-Carlton stuff that happened after me, but he knew nothing about the hotel business, but had gotten a franchise in South Carolina somewhere and said, come help me build it. And I said, well, I really don't want to leave Holiday Inn. I said, I want to stay here. And he said, well, whatever you're making, I'll double your salary and give you half of whatever I do. I said, okay, I'll go with you. So I left. And when I left that job with him 6 years later, I went back to Memphis and went in the hotel business with Jeff. We brokered hotels and did quite well for 2 or 3 years. And we had an opportunity come up where we could get this hotel with no money down, and the bank would finance it because they'd foreclosed on somebody, and Jeff had a relationship with a banker. So they let us start this Holiday Inn. That led to a business plan that you would call it a business plan today. We didn't know what we were doing, but we saw the Holiday Inn system aging somewhat back in the 80s. So we would go out and find older roadside properties that were in good markets that probably needed some fix up. So we'd go in and make, I'll call it Marriott quality rooms instead of Holiday Inn. We upgraded the rooms and we put in big food properties with great food and beverage operations that were doing equal to room revenue. A lot of our bars were doing between $2 and $4 million in little places like Augusta, Georgia. So we would then either refinance them and keep them, or we'd sell them. And that was sort of our business plan. And it worked until the drug culture came into the lounge side of the business, and I didn't want any part of that. So he and I got out of that business, and after doing about, I'd say 20 or 30 hotels from Washington to Florida, we got out of that business and sold it in 1990. Since then, I've been involved in the Sandcastle hotels, which Jeff was sort of fed up with the hotel business, wanted to do something else. So I started Sandcastle Hotels, and we had the Hilton in Palm Beach, built the Hilton in Marco Island, and the Hilton in Sandestin. Today, everything we have had in my place in life, everything I've gotten out of pretty much everything I have done, particularly if it requires any active part on my part. And the hotel that I have is the Hilton in Sandestin, which has been probably one of the most successful Hilton hotels in their franchise system. Up until last year, when we did about $66 million and made, well, we distributed to our partners a little over $14 million cash. That this year, the COVID has brought about the loss of about half our business was group. We've lost a little over $17 million worth of business that was on the books. And that profit has gone, the revenues have gone from 66 down to less than 30 by the end of the year. We project that. And we've got about I think it's 4.2 million in the PPP program for the government. But even with that, we'll have a cash loss. Instead of making some $14 million, we'll lose about probably, including the grant, we'll lose about $1.5 million this year. But as I indicated earlier, I have great belief that things are going to get better next year, particularly if we have a vaccine. And our bookings really look great for next year. I do want to speak a minute about Jeff Mann, who mentioned, the dean mentioned a minute ago. As I said, Jeff was sort of in the 60s and 70s, was probably one of the national leaders in the hotel industry. He and George and I worked together with one of the individuals, Jerry Hooper, who's not alive anymore, early on in the franchise department. And Jeff had quite frankly, had been a general manager of the Holiday Inn next door to the Holiday Inn's home office. And Jack Ladd, who was really a character, but the first salesman for Holiday Inn selling franchises, Jeff caught his eye and he said, come to work for me. So Jeff moved over and started work with Jack Ladd, and actually was responsible for the franchise growth of Holiday Inns. And with many years that we sold whatever our budget was, Jeff directed the department to do about twice what was expected. George and I worked our tails off to make him successful, and he in return was very gracious to us and provided an education, as I said, provided an education for me and a framework on which I could build. In my particular area, he and George walked in one day and gave me huge, we'd just gotten a 1040 computer, I think IBM computer, which is a big deal, about the size of 12 refrigerators, and it had to be an air conditioned spec. So unreal, it's pristine, and I mean, primitive for the computer industry. But anyway, they had this printout of a 5-year projection of a Holiday Inn. It was what it would do in revenues and profits. And they said, all right, go home and study this, and then we want you to do a 5-year pro forma with a pen and pencil. And so creating that, going back to what I said earlier about a profit and loss statement, I didn't know what that was all about at the time. I thought it was just student work. But it proved to be, to me, to give me an understanding of being able to totally understand and comprehend the financial side of the business operation of the hotel. I still believe that regardless, I'll say this to the students, regardless of what you want to do, and if you want to be in this industry, whether you want to get in the finance side of it, the brokerage side of it, the operations, whatever you want to do, or whatever you see yourself being interested in, the basic foundation of, to me, after you talk about the aspects of dealing with people and wanting to satisfy their needs and having them leave your property satisfied and wanting to come back. Other than that, understanding the financial side of this business is essential to whatever you do in the hotel business. So whether it's a desk clerk or you want to be a rooms manager or whatever, learning the details of that department and doing it better than anybody else, to me, is critical. So maybe I covered some of your questions. If I didn't, Dean, I'm sorry.
No, you did. And the reverence you have for Jeff Mann is obviously very obvious. Just for the benefit of the students, I want you to know Frank is one of the founding members of the school itself. He's actually created an endowment that gives scholarships every year to our students. We thank you for that, Frank. And he recently started a faculty award in the name of Jeff Mann, and we'll be awarding it from the beginning of next spring, I think, is when the faculty will decide. But so I really thank you for that. And Frank, you talked about the impact of COVID on the company operation side, but do you have any personal stories of how it's impacted your employees? Throw a human side to it. Do you have any personal stories on that?
I'm a little bit separated from the day-to-day operation of the hotel, so I don't have the individual stories, but relating to that, I'll tell you two things. One is that there's a deep concern and serious concern on many of our employees, particularly those dealing in health in the spa area. We have dealing with healthcare and cutting hair and massage and therapy and whatever. Deep concern about the transmission of the disease and whether they want to come to work or not. I think it's legitimate. The housekeepers have become paranoid about it somehow. We have had no reported cases other than 2 that were rather isolated of our employees even being involved in anything having to do with the COVID virus. I can tell you that we were able, I don't know what we would have done. Well, I do too. We would have probably done something for the employees, not knowing what. We didn't have to make that choice thanks to the government's PPP program. We kept our people on at full salary. We had at that time a payroll of about $1.6 million every 2 weeks. So for 8 weeks with the government program, we were able to take all of that money and give it to our employees and keep them at full salary. We were actually, I think the couple of nights before we closed in March, in a 600-room hotel, I think we rented 8 rooms one night and 9 rooms the next. And so those employees that were paid, yes, I had many people come to me and thank me, and some with tears in their eyes. And I heard stories of people saying, I didn't know I was going to make my house payment or car payment, or I thought I was going to be without a job. So it did give us a wonderful opportunity to help them. And in the process, I'm hoping that it is going to produce back for our hotel a bond between that person. We've had many of our people at the hotel have been there over 30 years. Some, I bet we've got 50 people, 50 to 75 that have been there more than 10. So they have a bond and a loyalty to the hotel, and it's more like a family, more like Holiday Inn was, than just a group of people working. That was very satisfying to be able to do that. As I said, I don't know what we would have done if we'd had to pay $1.6 million payroll every 2 weeks. If you don't have the funds, what do you do? So fortunately, we've had some reserves, and we've been able to fund the operations through reserves, and think we can make it till the end of we're budgeting to do the end of next March, when we think we think it will turn by then. All indications are that the season will be very good. Fortunately for us this year, our social business, or you may have read that even though a lot of the hotel individual properties are experiencing some at one point even single digit occupancy levels, which we were, resort properties like ours that are in a drive market. We serve about a 9-state area that people can drive to our properties. Our social business has been 50% higher than it was last year, which made up for some of the shortfall in the group. But operationally in the hotel, we found, to our dismay, we cannot serve the guests of 600 rooms in our physical facility. There is no way. And have the social distancing, and even at the beach and the pool, you figure out you got 600 rooms with 4 people to a room, that's 2,400 people. Normally half of those people are in meetings or doing something else, so you don't have the 1,200 people to deal with. But when you don't have meetings and it's all social, all those people want to go to the pool, all of them want to go to the beach. So we cut our inventory, went to Hilton and said, we want to be a 500-room property and not a 600-room property. Got there, we just took 500 rooms out of inventory for their honor stays calculated, for a lot of reasons, just went down to 500 rooms. And we have done really quite well. But as I said, the increase in social business, even though it's a higher rate than the group, made up about 55% of the loss we had the social made up 55% of the group. That was during season when people want to go to the beach and all that business. Now we hit Labor Day. I think we'll probably do a third of the revenue we did last year. We did do some operational changes throughout the year. Interestingly enough, Hilton came out with this protocol at when they decided the big corporate solution was, well, we're going to not clean the rooms every day. We're going to make the people put the towels and sheets or whatever they want laundered outside the door. We'll come in one day a week, and before you, no one will go in the room after you've rented the room. Well, the guests wouldn't stand for that. They said, you will clean the room, and we're not going to put our laundry outside, and blah, blah, blah. So that effort to help the guests was not accepted well, so that is no longer being done. But the other things that you hear routinely, like the hand sanitizers and the social distancing and so forth, has been executed and well done. We do have misting systems, and we do have hand sanitizers on all the elevators, and then the public spaces every 15, 20 feet, I guess, in various places where people can sanitize their hands. Our as usual, or as acceptable, our people serving food wear masks, and some wear gloves. If it's inside, outside, they do not. Don't ask me why. I hadn't figured that one out yet, but they don't. It amazed me that from the onset of the virus in March at the beach, even though employees were wearing masks, the hundreds or thousands of guests that I saw during the months of March through June when I came up to North Carolina, mid-June, if I had seen 1,000 to 2,000 people, I bet I hadn't seen a half a dozen face masks on guests. And then Hilton came out with a requirement that guests had to wear face masks, and they are doing that, and it has been well received. Even though people, I'm told that people walk through the hotel without them, and they're given a mask, say, please put this on. The response is, oh, I forgot, I'm sorry. So I think the culture has gotten used to doing it. I think it's ridiculous not to. You're telling other people, I can breathe on you or spit on you or spew, whatever. If I want to, I can spray on you, and I don't have to wear a mask. I think it's ridiculous. So I wear a mask, and the converse of that, up in North Carolina, a little old town of probably 12,000 people at the most. You don't go anywhere up here without a mask on. Everybody. I mean, it is, you're an outcast if you don't have a mask on up here. So I think the society's become accustomed to it. Anyway, I think some of the things that we are doing in the hotel, I think will stay with us. Other things, when we have a vaccine, I'm hoping will be, let's call normal. Maybe it will be a new normal, but I think we'll get closer to what things were before the virus once we have a vaccine.
So Frank, what other operational changes are you making? The airline industry, for example, announced that they are not going to have any penalty for changing, bookings permanently. Some of the airlines, I think it was United that came up with the ruling yesterday. So have you done anything? I mean, so somebody cancels after 6 p.m. on the date of arrival, are you charging them for a no-show?
Well, I think it was United was already had that in process, and American.
Okay. American, yeah.
But anyway, yes, we have pretty much, well, we were required. I probably wouldn't do it if it was my decision, but we are required by Hilton with, you can cancel with 24 hours notice. So that has been the policy since day one. And as I said, these contracts we had where the rooms were booked and contracts were signed for millions of dollars worth of room business. If the group wanted to cancel, they canceled without penalty. Now, obviously, we tried to rebook them. If they were in the spring, we tried to rebook them for the fall. If they didn't want the fall, we tried to rebook them for next year. Those kind of efforts were made. One thing we're facing right now, and we haven't solved it yet, is that some of these groups are talking about having hybrid meetings next year, and they want to contract with us for, say, X rooms and take our the space required for their meetings and food and beverage and so forth. But then they want to be able to allocate, let's say, up to 30% of those rooms committed to people who want to watch it by computer virtually. So what do you do if you've contracted a rate for those, let's just say it's 300 rooms, and 100 of the rooms don't show up? Well, at $200 a night, 3 nights, that's a lot of money. So somehow we're going to have to, either through adding a fee for the technology. If people don't want to come, we still have to be compensated. It's no big deal to the group, because the group receives their profits off of the booking of the package to come to the group. So in other words, if they sell somebody a package at $100 a night, they're selling the package. They may be paying us $90, but they're getting $10. So that's having them in these groups. We deal with associations primarily. Associations make their money by packaging these things. So we're going to have to figure out a way to get compensated with, if you will, for those people who don't show but want to do it virtually. But the group is contracted for them to be there, if you follow that.
In the interest of time, I know we had a few more questions about operations, but in the interest of time, I'm going to switch gears and have you talk a little bit about career opportunities and your advice for the students, given the long-term impact that this pandemic might have. What sort of skills do you anticipate the students should have in dealing with not just the pandemic, but in the future with how the industry operates or expects to operate?
Well, it's very timely you asked me that, because I have 2 granddaughters getting out of college looking for jobs, one as we speak. She graduated from Davidson, very, very bright young lady, and did some biological research in that field while she was a student at Davidson. And the other one is getting out of W&L this spring, and she doesn't know what she wants to do, but she's trying to find her way. The one that went to Davidson has hit a roadblock, found a job search in what she's looking for in that field almost impossible at the moment, because people are not hiring. And in our industry, I must have heard of, in the Hilton Sandestin, we must have had however many applicants we've had. We have not hired a single one for now. One is we're going to the off season, which we're not normally hiring anyway, but I don't think we would be and won't be until we get a little clearer picture on what's going to happen next year. I think it's a tough time, and if I were, I mean, you got to accept where you are, and if the student gets out of school and finds a dead end in the hotel environment right now, whatever he or she wants to do in the hotel business, let's just say it's construction, well, take another job temporarily. I mean, that's not the end of the world. You don't have to stay where you are. If you need an income, take a job where whatever you take, wherever field you go into, or whatever job you take is in the field that you ultimately think you want to be in. If you wanted to broker hotels, let's say, just then find somebody that will teach you real estate sales or give you a job in selling, where you can learn some skills and then apply to the hotel business when hotels need people. I have found that two of the greatest opportunities right now in my mind, in addition to those that are, I'll drop back in a minute, but two great new fields are revenue management and social marketing. Revenue management, I think I understand fully. That is becoming more and more of a key role in management in the hotel industry, particularly in a seasonal operation or one that has both group and social business. I always think that if you can show somebody that you are honest, hardworking, and have a good attitude, and you want to work, and you tell somebody you need the job, I don't care whether it's what it's doing. If you can take a job as an assistant at a property, or a management trainee, or whatever it is, take the lesser job to learn, get your foot in the door. Then I think you got to decide whether you ultimately want to be in a chain kind of environment where it's the corporate world. I was never for that at all. In fact, one of the reasons that I sort of moved away from Holiday is that it became more and more of a corporate deal, and Kimmon's influence of we're going to get it done one way or another became sort of a guided by corporate mentality that sort of supplanted where Kimmon's came from. And I didn't like it near as much as I did when I had Kimmon's leadership. But I think just to get involved where you can get involved, even if it's temporary, it's not says something about you to an employer in the future, that you could go in and say, I wanted to get a job with your company, but you weren't hiring. So I went out and was a cook at McDonald's, or I wanted to learn the food business. So I think if you take the lesser job and then go ultimately to where you want to be and apply and show that you've demonstrated some initiative and willingness to do what's necessary, I think that speaks volumes.
Thank you, Frank. I know I have a few more questions, but I do want to give an opportunity to the students to ask questions. So this is your chance. Cody, do we end at 10:30 or do we have more time?
This goes until 11:05.
Okay, good. So I'll stop here and have students ask, and then I can come back to my questions if you don't have any. So anybody, I saw a few questions coming up on the chat group, and Marta has answered one of them, but there is a question about the influence or the change in ADR, Frank, and you kind of briefly talked about revenue, but well, between occupancy rates and ADR, RevPAR is going down. So can you talk a little bit about that for the benefit of the student?
You would be more advised of that than I, but I can only speak to the one that I don't have but one reference that I can speak from, but that is true. We have, but I think it's, in our case, I think it's more of a business mix. The room rate we're getting is 5 to 7% higher through this past season than we got last year. Our food and beverage operations, because we didn't have banquets and we didn't have the RevPAR to include in the revenue pocket, the revenue occupied room, revenue available room, it did go down appreciably, perhaps $100 a day per rented room. But that was an anomaly because of the not having the banquet business. But I think the room rates, at least for us at the beach this summer, held appreciably well.
Okay. I sent you that report on the short-term rentals versus hotels. And it's a very good question, because what we're noticing is that the ADR, the average daily rate, is bouncing back much quicker in the hotel industry compared to the short-term rental Airbnb type properties, because they actually didn't go down as much as it went down in hotels. So that was kind of the takeaway from that.
Plus at Destin, you couldn't even rent B properties.
Right. There are some markets that actually, anyhow. So Frank, we have a lot of sport management majors in this program. I know that you're a big supporter of Athletic. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you've done for the program here?
Excuse me 1 minute. Brenda, would you come call Daryl and tell him I won't be there till 12:15? Here's my 12:15. Call Taylor Stewart or Daryl Stewart. Talking about being at 12:15. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry about that, Frank.
That's okay. I'm delighted to do it. I just need to tell these people I was going to meet.
Okay.
Contract. I'll meet them at 12:15. Where were we?
So your support for Tigers.
Oh, that it was. I'm telling you, that's been a fun ride. I guess it all started. There were three of us: Mike Rose and Willard Sparks, who both are not with us anymore. Were friends of mine, and Willard Sparks was a commodity trader in Memphis, one of the largest in the country, and a big supporter of the University of Memphis. In fact, he was buried in his ambassador sport coat as a tribute to the school or fondness for the school. He and Mike and I were asked by R.C. Johnson, whom we'd become friends of. We sat down there with him one day and said, I want to start a deal called the Ambassadors Club. He explained what it was, and $500,000 would be given to support the university, and then he wanted us to go ahead and try to grow the Ambassadors Club. And I was the first one to speak up. I said, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. I said, nobody's going to give you $500,000 to support the University of Memphis, blah, blah, blah. Well, I ended up doing it. Willard ended up doing it. And Mike ended up doing it. And that was the nucleus. He said, now go out and find us some more people. So I think over the years, with Lane Wallen's support, who was president at the time, that grew, and it was fun to be involved. And then I got involved with a fundraising effort to put an addition on the athletic complex, which Mike and I did. And I don't know, the story with the golf school was they had raised $500,000 for the golf school. And RC came to me and said, I need another $500,000 for the golf school. And I said, well, I'll think about it. So I went back to him, and we got in discussions, and there was a bunch of hemming and hawing and what they wanted to build and all that business. And I said, told him, I said, look, I'm not going to do anything unless you let me do it like I want to do it. I mean, you got to write sign off on it. But if you want my money, you're going to build it like I want to build it. He and that time Shirley Raines agreed to it. So they got it approved by the legislature, and we built the golf deal for $1 million and $1.1 million or something like that. And I hope they've kept it up. I hadn't seen it in a long time, but that was my interest in sports and athletics. And it was just a fun time. We enjoyed being around. It was fun to raise. I like raising money. I've done it several times for a couple of churches in Memphis and a ECS school in Memphis. And I don't mind asking for money at all. And I don't mind saying no either. People ask me. I was asked one time whether I'd give $1 million to the zoo. And I told the man had coming to me, I said, well, I appreciate you wanting me to, thinking I could do it, but I have no interest in the zoo personally. I'm giving $1 million. Thank you very much. So you can't be afraid for somebody to tell you no, because they're going to tell you no. But we did have a lot of success with a group of individuals that wanted to support. So just some of the service wanted to support the university. And it was a good time for the university because Rex Dockery had been there, and then he had an untimely death, and he had sort of started what was going on. And Tommy West and the coaches that came through there, and Calipari was just set the world on fire. And the enthusiasm for the sport, the whole sports complex has grown and grown. And of course, Penny's contribution and now what the football team is doing has been a revelation. I do think that I'm not an athlete myself. I play a poor game of golf, but I do nothing else athletically. But I do think that athletics sets the tone for the university, and it's important to have the student athletes involved in the program with the university's name out front.
So in case you didn't know it, you can go check on the website, but Frank's support for the golf program, actually, there's a training center named after him. because of his contribution to it. So we again thank you for that, Frank. So
Well, that was accidental. When I saw my name up on that building, I said, "What in the heck did you do that? Well, you don't do that until people die." I said, "Can you take that off?" And I said, "Just put a little plaque up there, it'll be all right." But they decided to leave it, so I'll leave it alone.
Well, the university recognizes what you're doing for us, so we appreciate that. There's a question that one of the students wants to know about the support that you're getting, or maybe the constraints that the chain operations, the marketing departments are putting on you in for selling your own, marketing your own properties. Are like the Hilton, is that telling you what prices you could charge? Or what you could say about your clean rooms and their clean programs and so on. Is there any pushback between the hotels and the chain operations in that regard right now?
There is continual pushback on requirements that the chains make with the Hilton, or I've been with Marriott, Hilton, Ramada, and Holiday, IHG. The chains have to have certain controls for their own benefit, their own protection, and the protection of the system. I understand that. They have become more sympathetic over time to listening to reason. If for some reason you can't do something, or we can't do something, we've asked for an exception to the rule, and I will say that we don't ask for anything unreasonable, so most of the time, whatever we ask for is granted. So controls, yes. Demands, yes. But are they unreasonable? In my mind, no.
Okay, but so it's working out on both sides. That's perfect. So Frank, on our basic curriculum, the DNA of our curriculum is business focused, both in sport and hospitality. We do all the functional areas, marketing, finance, accounting, and so on. From your long experience, how have you seen these functions evolve? And given the long-term impact of the pandemic in the industry, how do you think they would change in the future? And how can we prepare for it?
Well, that's a real loaded question. Let me simply say that in my own experience, I try to get all of those disciplines involved in our property. That's one property. We sit down, we probably have 2 meetings a week, one with the department head, with what we call our executive team, which focuses on those areas you just mentioned. Because I don't think one, in a property our size with the kind of volume we do, let me confine it to that, you can't operate in a vacuum. Right. Each department needs to know what the other's doing and why, and how they contribute to the success of that effort. It's a lot simpler in a let's call it what I call limited service. I don't know what the buzzword is now. Chuck could tell me, but in the Hampton Inn and Suites and the Home Twos and so forth, that is a lot easier kind of property to manage because you probably have one salesperson, 2 at the most, and you have one person in accounting. When we got 8 people in accounting and 8 people out selling at the Hilton, it's an entirely different program. But as I mentioned before, if all the people at the table don't have a general understanding of how the hotel operates and what their contribution is, you got a mess, because nobody can take off on their own tangent and try to have the property be successful. If it's not operating as a well-oiled machine, it's not going to reach its potential. So you mentioned COVID, alluded a minute ago to some of these things that we're not aware. I'm not aware, and I cannot forecast what's going to happen in the future. I do think that there's going to be a normal that will be probably 75% or 80% of what was, because I don't think you're in a meetings hotel like we have. And even a salesman's travel. I don't think that a salesman and his customers are going to be happy continually to meet on computer screen or a telephone. I think pressing the flesh and talking about their children and their families and blah, blah, blah. And I know that's how you sell, is you build a personal relationship with somebody. You can't build that personal relationship, in my judgment, just on a cold vehicle. So I think people will travel, and I think it'll get back to normal. And will there be nuances? Yeah, but nothing nothing I see. Some increased costs, yes. But nothing that I see it's going to dramatically shift. I'm not talking about airlines and all. I'm just talking as far as the hotel business is concerned.
Okay. Well, one of our students actually has asked a question which goes back to something you said about getting a job, any job to be engaged after graduation. The question that Celia is asking is, what if they went to grad school rather than took up a job? Would that be okay? Would that be an advantage or not?
Well, I think that obviously I would answer that by just saying it depends on what the individual wants to do. The subject with my granddaughters, for example, with at least one of them has come up, may go back to graduate school. And my answer is to accomplish what? What is it you want to do that will, other than delay getting a job and sitting at home, what is it that you want? What will you accomplish by doing that? Will it make you more prepared for whatever it is you want to ultimately do? And in this case, with this, as I said, if in this biological research sort of deal that my granddaughter's graduated in, I would think there would be some technical knowledge that would be applicable to her success in ultimately getting a job. But to go to graduate school when you know I'm going to go to graduate school just to have something to do, I wouldn't subscribe to that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So Frank, what is your expectation of when this would end, and how are you preparing for it, the pandemic?
Well, as I said, my expectation is for it to be a slow, two things. One is, I think I'm a firm believer, I really, an accepting of faith, I believe that we're going to have a vaccine, and we'll have a vaccine by the end of the year. Yeah. How much gets produced, how they distribute it, who can have it. I was appalled yesterday, day before, when I read that only 55% of the people questioned said they were going to get the vaccine, which I thought was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. But nevertheless, that's just my judgment, my reaction. I think that if we see that, I just think the psychological side, as I said, most people are unless you're my age with heart condition like I have, and your cardiologist says don't get it because I can't help you if you do. That's sort of sobering. Now, somebody that's young, if I were young, I wouldn't be paying this virus that much attention. I would probably maybe 30% concerned. I'm 90% concerned personally, but 30% concerned, and I think it's going to get lessened if we have a vaccine. So I think next year we're going to have a recovery, but I don't think we'll get back to 19's business levels and probably until 22.
Okay.
But yes, I mean, it's anybody's guess.
Right. Actually, some reports I've read that only 30% are actually going to take the vaccine, when it comes out. That, I believe, has got to do with some of the information that's coming out of CDC, and people are not trusting it. Anyway, so there's a good question, Frank, here from a student who obviously goes to Destin very often, has seen the place grow and your property. So the question is, how did you know it would grow so well, and how did you know to invest in that property there? What sort of analysis foresight did you have?
As I said, I built a lot of stuff in my career, and back in the 70s, it was back about the time that I came back to Memphis and joined Jeff Mann in this business, and I was looking for something to do. We built some Holiday Inns, just opened one in Columbia, South Carolina. And I was sitting on the beach in Destin, and I went over to look at the office in Destin and at the Sandestin Resort. They had just a plat of the resort, and it said hotel on this parcel. And I went to the guy that owned it, and I said, "You want to sell it?" And he said, "Yes." And so anyway, he was having financial difficulties. Make a long story short, the reason it was a condo hotel was it was built in 1980 when prime rate was 21%. And it made no sense in the world for anybody to even begin a hotel at that level. I mean, people thought I was nuts, which I probably was. Anyway, I just said, well, I'm going to build a hotel on this, and it's going blah, blah, blah. So I did it. I will tell you that the night I bought the property in 1882, I guess, for $8 million and some friend of mine who I'd been in business with before. It was his money, but I was going to do the work and so forth and so on. I stopped after I closed the land that evening. I stopped out at the entrance to Sandestin, and I called this fellow who was a friend of mine's father who had built the first high rise in Sandestin called Shoreline Towers, and he was a pioneer back in the 50s, 60s in building stuff in Destin. I called him and I said, "Mr. Shahead, you're not going to believe this," but I said, "I made the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life." And he said, "What's wrong?" I said, I just bought this piece of property I did to build this hotel. And I'm sitting at the intersection of the entrance to Sandestin and Highway 98, and I do not see one single light anywhere. And he said, "Oh, don't worry about it." He said, "By the time you get it built, it'll be built up about the county line." Well, it didn't happen that quickly. It was 5 years of really hard work and lots of pain, birthing pains to get it from 84 to open until really about 90. We struggled. I think we had no debt on the property. I think we made something like $80,000 the first year. That obviously improved over the years, and it really hit its stride when we went from 1996. We were able to add 200 rooms to it at the spa a year later. So it went from 400 rooms to 600 rooms, and that's when it really the profits, as you all know, if you know a balance sheet, that's when the profits really flowed. So it was successful. Minimally successful when it opened, but only because I had no debt. If I'd had debt on it, we'd be broke.
Okay, that's perfect. Another question came up from one of the students again, asking is if the vaccine does come out, should the employees be mandated to take it?
I've never thought about that, but what I'd say is it legal to do that? I don't know that it's even legal that you can mandate an employee to take it, but if it were left up to me, I would say yes, but for the protection of other employees, yes. And if they don't want to take it, then they don't have to come to work.
Right.
That's our response. But if it's not legal, obviously you couldn't do it.
Okay. Yeah. I think there'll be some serious legal ramifications there by mandating it. Okay, so I'm going to pause again here and give a chance to our faculty, students, and even our board members to open up for any questions you might have. I know some questions trickled in through chat, but this is your chance to ask questions. Do you have any? I see a mic opening up on somewhere. No. Even the faculty don't have any questions? Okay.
Dash, this is Adam Walker. I'll just comment real quick and thank Frank. Frank, believe it or not, we had 63 more dummies after you joined the Ambassador Club. So thank you.
That's wonderful. I told you it wouldn't work.
I know, we've gone 63 people since then. They said, "Well, Frank Plott did it." They go, "Okay, well, he's a smart man."
Thank you for that. Yeah.
That's just another one of my good predictions.
Perfect. I think I covered everything that I wanted to, and I was hoping the students had more questions. If you have anything else you need to cover, Cody, go ahead, talk to the class. If not, if the board members would like to add any comments for the students, Chuck, George, and Kim, anything at all?
Sorry, I had a quick question.
Yeah, right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So Mr. Flau, you said that you have worked with a lot of different companies like Marriott and Hilton and all of those. Is there a certain like aspect that you're looking for when you decide to work with those companies, or is it just something that you don't really pay as much of an attention to?
Are you talking about it as an applicant for a job, entering the workforce?
No, I was sorry, I'm not great with my words, but I was talking about like, what do you look for when a company comes to you to ask to like either buy up the property or buy your hotel chain?
Oh, well,
When you decide to choose a property, I guess, you know, a flag for your property. So that's basically.
if I chose a flag, the reason, for example, I'll just use it for instance in Sandestin, the reason that I chose Hilton is, quite frankly, at that time, Hilton was sort of an enigma. Nobody really knew what a Hilton was. They had some good properties, and they had some not so good properties, but basically, in my mind, and I think Chuck would probably agree, it was regarded as being a quasi-luxury hotel, but not quite. I wanted to go for I needed to go at that beach property for something that was a little, as opposed to a Holiday Inn or a Marriott. Marriott was more of a business. You pretty much pigeonhole what a Holiday Inn is, or Marriott, or a Ritz-Carlton, or whatever. But Hilton, you could pretty much build what you wanted to build, and the name would tie in there by the reservation system. So that's what I was buying, and I thought I could get a higher rate with a Hilton than I could with a Holiday or a Marriott. I will tell you the one thing that you need to be proud of there in Memphis with Holiday, because I was there in Memphis, I didn't mention it before, but when Kimmons started his hotel chain, some of the franchisees helped from Clarksville, Mississippi, Earl Jones, and a group helped him develop the Holodex reservation system, which when they installed it was the largest private computerized communication system in the country. We had 177,000 miles of coaxial cable that was connected from all over the United States and Canada into the city of Memphis out there on Lamar. It was a fabulous, sophisticated operation for its time. I mean, I'm sure it's dwarfed by other, I mean, you don't have cable today, but that kind of thing is what happened at Holiday Inn, and that's why I'm so proud of my affiliation with them. And I got to add one more thing, is that I didn't say this, but I think more than anything, I know I was told Wallace Johnson, who was Kimmons' partner and another home builder in Memphis, when they started Holiday Inn, or Kimmons started, Wallace joined him, was they did not have a written partnership agreement. They operated on word of mouth and a bond and a handshake, and that permeated the Holiday Inn system. And I personally was proud of working for them, because I never once saw or heard of anything that didn't reflect the integrity and honor and commitment to being fair with people. And if they told you something, you could take it to the bank. And I think that later I was told, I sold the company, and when I sold my company, they said, well, I'm proud of what y'all have done with the company, because they grew it enormously. It was Flaw Properties. They grew it to Davidson Hotel, and Davidson Hotel is probably one of the largest independent management companies in the country. And I was telling John Belden, I said, y'all just done such a good job at that company. I'm so proud of you. And he said, well, you were responsible for it. I said, I had absolutely nothing to do with it. He said, well, your culture that you put into that company is still there. And I reflected back on that, and I said, well, if there was such a thing as a culture, I learned that at Holiday Inn because that was the culture of Holiday Inn, and I was proud of it, proud to work for it.
Perfect. Kim, you were about to say something?
Yeah, I just really wanted to thank Frank for this exchange. I think it's been great. And, you know, he's had an incredible career run. It's been a terrific success story. And I hope the students saw that, you know, Frank really saw various opportunities throughout his career. He's worked hard and he's taken some risk. Y'all have heard some big risk. And, you know, that's kind of part and parcel of what you got to do in life. But, you know, one thing that he's maintained is community involvement. And you've heard that through what he's done, you know, with his philanthropy. And so, you know, it's just a wonderful success story of a guy that, you know, this was not his major. This was, you know, but he learned, he was kind of learned it on the fly, but it took commitment and the right kind of opportunity. And, you know, students have to just see that opportunity and take a risk, and you could be just like Frank Flaw. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Kim, very much.
Thank you. George, you want to say something? George, you're muted. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank my dear friend Frank. And he, you know, when we first started out, when he came to work for Jeff Mann and me, I guess maybe we taught Frank a little bit for the first 2 years. Then I began to learn more from Frank. Okay. And I've been learning ever since because he's a great teacher and a wonderful guy. And I just thrilled to be a part of his success through the years, just by standing by and watching him grow. And Frank, you need to go back and tell a story of what your first endeavor with University of Memphis or Memphis State Athletics for the NIT tournament where you raised the money for the cheerleaders. Tell that story.
Well, I was a cheerleader for the University of Memphis in I didn't know anything about the school, whatever, graduated from high school. That spring went out, tried out a cheerleader. Anyway, I got to be a cheerleader, and I loved holding the girls up and all that stuff. It was a lot of fun. But anyway, I did it simply because I knew the Tigers were going to the NIT or would go somewhere, the basketball tournament, and I would get to go. So we got on the bus, loaded the bus to go to the NIT. I'll make the story short, but got on the bus to go to the NIT, and they came on the loudspeaker and on the bus and said, well, I'm going to have to cancel because the roads are closed due to ice and snow and blah, blah, blah. And I went back in, got off the bus, went back into, what was the dean? Dean Robinson's office. I said, Dean Robinson, if I could raise the money to get the people to go to New York on the train, will you approve that? And he said, yeah. So I went out and started calling on people, asking them to donate money to let the cheerleaders go to New York for the NIT. And I think there were 8 of us. And I got enough for 6 people to go. So I told 6 of them, I didn't have it by the time to leave. So I said, 6 of them, this other fellow and I, Bill Hart and I, were left behind. And I said, y'all go ahead and go. I said, we'll figure it out. So anyway, the commercial appeal picked up on it. And somebody, I think it was the guy Peebles who owned a local men's store up there on Highland, read the story about how the cheerleaders had gone and left us there. And he bought us 2 airline tickets to fly to New York. So when the cheerleaders got to New York, Bill and I greeted them. When they got off the train, we greeted them because we got to fly. That's the first time I'd ever been on an airplane. I was thrilled to death.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Chuck, do you have anything, or would you like to? Chuck, okay. Well, I just want to say that in terms of the pandemic and all the help that you're providing, Frank, the Kimmons Wilson Family Foundation also did that. We did a care package program this April and May. We gave about 1,600 care packages to the hospitality employees. So I want to thank the Kimmons Wilson family and all the other donors that contributed to that effort. So we did our part and we'll continue to do so. And some of our students took advantage of it, and I really thank everybody that supported that program. So thank you for everything you do for the industry and for sharing your insight into the future and their job prospects and so on. If you have any other questions after this, you're welcome to send us an email and we'll send it off to Frank.
Let me just encourage the students. It's a great business to be in. It's it's so satisfying and just a joy to go to work. And when you love what you're doing, it's not a job. It's just a lifestyle, and it's a real pleasure to be associated with people that you become friends with. It's a wonderful community to be involved with, and the University of Memphis Hotel School, Kimmons Wilson Hotel School is a part of that, and I'm delighted to be so supportive.
Thank you very much, Frank. Cody, it's all yours now.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Frank, for taking the time to speak with us. And thank you, everyone, for attending. And this will bring our research forum to a close for today. So thank you, everyone, for attending. If you have any questions, please reach out to your instructors. If you have any questions for Frank or anyone else, please reach out and somebody can get you in touch. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Stay
Have
safe.
a good day.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Thanks, Frank.
Bye. Thanks, Frank.